10 seconds.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual town meeting review. My name is Kevin Dumas. I'm the town manager here in Mansfield, and really appreciate the opportunity to give a little heads up of what we're anticipating and going through and reviewing with you today as it relates to our fiscal 22 special town meeting that's coming up next Thursday, the 4th, and that's going to be at 7 p.m. over at Mansfield High School. And so we really look forward to the opportunity for you to be with us and to be able to be in person. And instead of doing this virtual opportunity, we get to see you face to face. So we look forward to the opportunity to be with you coming up for next Thursday. Before this afternoon, here we are 4:30 p.m. today doing this virtual review and also hosting this on cable access as well. So thank you for Mansfield Cable Access for being live with us this afternoon to be able to do this virtual presentation to the public. This will be aired multiple times, just like you'd be able to air and review our virtual town meeting presentation today. So again, thank you for attending today, and certainly thank you for your consideration and coming for next Thursday. You know, for tonight and this afternoon, we're focusing on the areas of Articles 1 through 14, and those are going to be to deal with budgetary adjustments for this fiscal year. They're dealing with capital improvement items, the opportunity to pay down some outstanding debt and some projects that the public, you, as the legislative body, have previously approved for us, and we're paying 2 of our projects off at our town meeting. We're also making appropriations into our town financial reserves, which again is fantastic to be at this point despite the pandemic, but we're very proud of that opportunity to be able to bring to you. And then after the articles, after 14, it'll be 15 through 23. They're dealing with some zoning amendments. Sean Burke, our planning director, will be with us today to be able to discuss those. Also listed in the warrant are some home rule petitions. We will only be bringing up one of those, and one will be passed over, but we'll get into that this afternoon. And also a TIF agreement, which is a tax increment financing agreement. That's really a wonderful opportunity, brings a new business into town and a brand new building at 44 Cabot Boulevard for additional dollars to help offset the town's needs. And we're very excited about that with our economic development initiatives. It is also important to highlight that we're really performing well under the current circumstances in fiscal 22, just as we weathered the storm well in fiscal 2021 during and despite the pandemic. Wonderful job to the health department, our fire department and fire chief, our COVID-19 task force have all done a wonderful job with our public school system. And all of our finances are in really good standing, which is good to report to you, to the public. So you don't have to worry about ebbs and flows and going up and down or uncertainty. We're doing very well. So we're glad to report that to you today. And the fact that we are committed to our financial policies and returning funds as promised to our stabilization funds and catching up on our appropriations for other items. So we're really happy to report that to you. On the next screen, you'll see the certification of the town's free cash, and you can see that that's broken down below in the screen for you. The general fund at a little over 4 million, 4,051,000. The sewer enterprise fund at 1.6 million. The water enterprise fund at 1,027,000. Airport of 126,581, and parking at 80,463. So that's important to be able to go through to note, one, because it's higher than normal. And as I said, we did weather the storm well through fiscal 21. So once the books close, as of pretty much towards the end of August, the state comes in and does a certification to balance our revenues up against our expenses. And then at the end, that were $4 million to the good, and that was a positive number to have. Typically, it's between 2 and 3 million, but because of really honing in on the budget, that number is at 4. And then when you see the following slides, what we're going to be talking about, it gets into where we're suggesting some of those dollars go. And again, that's going to go towards the necessary items that we have approved from our capital improvement committee and the pay down of debt and going towards our financial reserves. So on the next page, you'll see again what we're talking about for this free cash. So the number I just mentioned to you for the 4 million, you can see where the recommendations are for those. The recommendations are for assessing valuation reserves. We'll get into those in the discussions on Article 3 and 4 for $70,000. Our capital improvement items, 1.6 million to pay with cash instead of borrowing, avoiding any extra cost. The pay down of outstanding debt, and we'll get to those two articles and those two projects. It's our last two pay down amounts, which we're proud of, so those will be off the books. And it'll be asking for appropriation for $1.4 million into reserves, and we're going to get into the breakdown of those in our presentation as well. So the total request of the $4,051,000 is, as you see on the screen, 3.3 million, which will leave $729,000 available for annual town meeting for discussion and consideration. Below on the sewer enterprise of 1.6 million, we're asking to have a transfer of 1.2 million into their respective reserve fund, as well in the water enterprise fund, we're asking that 630,000 of their 1,027,000 be moved into their reserve fund. Again, we're dealing with some unprecedented times during COVID and looking for the opportunity to be able to weather that storm. There's supply chain issues on every single item across the globe. So there will be opportunities in both water and sewer to buy additional items to be able to deal with the delay in timing. Some things are up to 8 or 9 months in delay. So if we have the opportunity to lock into a good price, but we know that the delay is going to be a while for the delivery of those goods and services, we would like to be able to have the financial capacity to be able to do so, go through FinCom and ask for authorization for those dollars once placed in those funds. Also out of the water enterprise fund is 45,000 for engineering services, and that's for a system distribution study that's needed from the water department. And also on the airport enterprise fund, the airport commission is asking that $75,000 of their $126,000 be appropriated and transfers into their reserve fund for building maintenance projects. So we talked a little bit earlier about financial reserves, certainly very important to the town. Just to report to you that the town's stabilization fund has a current balance of 4.413 million. And as a part of our request is that we're asking to transfer an additional $700,000 into the town stabilization fund per our reserve policy. Also, on the next item, other post-employment benefits. So this is not pension related, but this is for other things such as health and dental for retirees. For current employees that are working today, it's the future retiree benefit as it relates to healthcare and dental. So the current balance and what we have set aside for that is $9.3 million. This would transfer an additional $560,000 coming to full compliance with the financial reserve policy. But just so the public knows that that current liability offset by the 9.3 million that we have today still stands above $100 million. So it's important that we continue to put money aside for the future retiree benefit for our younger employees, that someday when they retire, that their future retiree health care will be appropriately accounted for. The next item is the future payment of accrued liabilities for compensated absences. It only has a current balance of about $7,500. And this is the account that we use to pay for that when people sever their employment with the town, amounts that are owed for vacation time and for sick time at the point of departure or retirement. Every year or so, we end up appropriating about $100,000 into the fund. So that estimate for fiscal 22 for the expenses is going to be for $100,000, and we're asking that to be transferred into that fund. And then also happy to report, and our last item on the screen, that we're creating a special education reserve fund, a special stabilization fund, just for the increased cost of any extra spikes that may be unbudgeted for. And if they are, we're starting a new stabilization fund for special education costs. So this is our first token deposit into that fund, and that request is for $50,000. I mentioned a home rule petition. So we have a home rule petition under Article 20. And as people may recall, if you participated in the 2014 town meeting, that provided for an opportunity for a home rule petition that was approved at town meeting, went to the state legislature to allow for 2 additional licenses for full liquor at Mansfield Crossing, 2 for Erin Center Plaza, 4 available for downtown / the train station area. That would be for 4, and it was for 1 for the chocolate factory area. That was approved by the general court, but it has a sunset clause of 7 years. And believe it or not, here we are expiring very shortly of those 7 years. And due to economic circumstances and things not happening as hoped for back in 2014 to 2021, these licenses are set to expire and they won't be available for any additional source. So while we're pushing forward strongly on our economic development initiatives in town, we would like to request from you, the public, to allow this for an additional 7 years. So it would be for the total, of course, for 14, but that this would provide the opportunity for those 9 licenses to be on the books as presented on the screen and as approved back in 2014 for an additional 7 years. And what will happen if we end up having someone that comes into any one of these areas and applies for their license, once they apply and obtain the license, then that license will be held with that particular individual. But we only have an additional 7 years under this opportunity to award to future businesses in these locations. So we really look forward to the opportunity. We hope that you can support us in this. Again, it's extending what was originally approved with no amendments other than the fact that it would provide for an additional 7 years in the sunset clause. I also mentioned as we started off today about a tax increment financing agreement, and I'm really proud about the opportunity. We've been working really hard because we understand that there's only so much developable land in Mansfield. We have certainly the second largest business park in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but the difficulties for new growth, which are our opportunities to be able to bring in new dollars into the town's budget without having to necessarily have an adverse impact on the public, that we have to look and really push for new opportunities within our existing footprint. So what has been constructed, and if anyone's had the opportunity, if you drive down Cabot Boulevard, as you're heading towards the Holiday Inn, on the left-hand side at 44 Cabot, see a brand new building that's going up, 60,000 square feet. It's going to bring in about $140,000 in new real estate taxes to the town of Mansfield in future years. And what we've been working with on our new initiative for Discover Mansfield, really a huge PR and marketing push that the town is open for business, that we're here to be able to provide opportunities for new businesses or existing businesses to be able to expand. And we have our first deal. This is really exciting. It's a $30 million investment to Mansfield. It's Walgreens company. And this is for a new micro fulfillment facility with 200 jobs to Mansfield, $6 million going into the facility, and $24 million going into the state-of-the-art robotic equipment. So this is really important because not only would we get the additional new real estate taxes for anyone that would be going into 44 Cabot Boulevard, but this provides a unique opportunity of the $24 million in personal property tax for those state-of-the-art robots. Over the life of 7 years, that will mean that the town's additional personal property tax opportunity is over $1 million. $1,083,000 is the estimate over a 7-year time frame, and that they're looking for $1,083,000 of an exemption over the life of those 7 years for this tax increment financing agreement. So it's important to note this is only a benefit to the town. We'll be getting into a couple of other slides further in the presentation, but this is really positive. There's no extra burden to anyone, to the business community, or to residents, but truly an opportunity to have this company come to Mansfield, to have this new opportunity of the state-of-the-art equipment, 200 jobs in a new 60,000 square foot facility, and on top of the $140,000 in additional real estate taxes to the town, this will provide the town almost an additional $1.1 million over 7 years, which is fantastic. So in conclusion of the first part of me talking with you today, Articles 1 through 14, as listed on the town's website, and again, mansfieldma.com, go over to quick links, and just you can click on the link to town meeting information, and all of our information is there, and our draft information for review is there. For 1 through 14 are budgetary and financial in nature. Articles 15 through 23 contain zoning amendments. And again, Mr. Burke is going to be here to talk about those with you today. The home rule petition on Article 20 that we talked about, and the tax increment financing agreement are all important items that are included as part of this town meeting. And so as we make our way through, please ask questions if any wording or anything is misunderstood or further clarification is needed. What I'd like to do with you today, as we move on to particularly the motions here, what we're going to be doing is that I'm going to go through the financial motions of 1 through 14. If you can just take the opportunity just to jot down your questions that you have on them, I will pause at the end of Article 14 on that motion, and then I'm going to ask Carrie to open it up for any questions or comments, and just please refer to the article number and the motion, and I'm more than happy to explain anything that you may have for questions or comments. So moving forward to the first one. So Article 1, Motion 1, you can see here, there's a request for an additional $79,269. What this represents, this is our regional vocation assessment for our Southeastern Regional School District. And after the budget was finalized, we received our final amount that's actually owed for our assessment, which ended up coming in $79,269 higher than the original assessment. So that's going to be something that we need, and that we need to be able to pay that bill to Southeastern Regional. So we'll be asking for support on Article 1, Motion 1 for that purpose. You heard me mention a little bit earlier in tonight's presentation on Article 1, Motion 2. This is for $45,000. It'll be asked to come from the Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings, and that's going to be to increase appropriations that were originally voted in the budget. And that this is for distribution system study and analysis for their needs and for the town's needs for its water distribution system. Article 1, Motion 3. This is for $75,000 that I had referenced, and this was asking to come from the Airport Enterprise retained earnings, and that this would go towards their building maintenance purposes for the airport. And we're going to be passing over Article 2, as we have no unpaid bills at this point in time from the prior fiscal year. Article 3, this is a motion for $10,000 to be able to be transferred from free cash to the treasury of the town to be able to go towards the 5-year revaluation of all properties in the town. So what we do is that we're raising a bit each year. So by the time we hit the 5th year, we'll have the dollars amount needed to do that 5-year revaluation. So this would be the first request out of 5. And again, on Article 4, this is $60,000, and this goes towards the next 10-year cyclical inspection of all properties of the town that happens every 10 years. And so right now we have a balance of $120,000 in the fund. We're asking for an additional $60,000, and then there'll be one more request that will happen after that for the next fiscal year. Article 5, Motion 1 lists all of the things that are listed inside the capital improvement items. So the total here is $1,192,000. This is improved by the Capital Improvement Committee, and they met, and their final approval was on September 9th for all of these items. All of their meetings are publicly posted, and all of their information is also publicly posted on their website as well, where it lays out the entire 5-year plan for the town. But this is particularly for fiscal 22, for the remainder of fiscal 22 for $1.192 million. So this is ranging from engineering, for highway, for public buildings, quite a few items here, for police and for fire. So this ranges from stormwater, from a front end loader, to town hall parking lot fence replacements, for town hall roof replacement design and the bidding requirements, the feasibility study for the master plan for Mansfield Green and Memorial Park, new COA preliminary design of $300,000, the police taser replacements at $60,000, and fire the last payment towards a full replacement of Rescue 35 at $70,000, which brings us to the total of $1.192 million. And this is just the verbiage backing up Article 5, Motion 1. Article 5, Motion 2 is also capital improvements, but these items are not only approved by the Mansfield School Committee, but they're also approved by the Capital Improvement Committee, again on September 9th. So you can see that they continue with the district unit ventilator replacements for air circulation in our schools. This is for $200,000. Some lighting upgrades in the district for $50,000, and also the Mansfield High School emergency generator replacement at a cost of $100,000 for a total request of $350,000. Article 6, this is something that probably for those people who have participated in fall town meetings before, we are put on notice by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that we receive a certain percentage of every single Uber and Lyft ride that is performed in Mansfield. And as such, our portion of that is $2,698.90. And we ask for approval for that to be allocated towards the Chapter 90 program to the town. And this happens every single year. Again, for the next couple of articles, this is on our reserve transfers. So this is the request that I had referenced, that of the 1.6 million of sewer enterprise retained earnings, that we asked for this to be transferred to the reserve fund for transfer for the sewer enterprise fund. Followed by the same opportunity that you see in Article 8 here on the screen, which is asking that $630,000 of the $1,027,000 be transferred from the water enterprise fund retained earnings over to their respective reserve fund for transfer as well. Asking Article 9 to be passed over is something that's not needed for this year. But for Article 10, we're asking that the parking reserve enterprise retained earnings be transferred to their reserve fund for transfer as well. Article 11 really completes the side of most of the reserve policy items. So as I had referenced earlier in the presentation, we're asking that an additional $700,000 be added to the town stabilization fund on top of the current 4.4 million that we have set aside. This sticks with our reserve fund policy. Also, an additional $560,000 towards our other post-employment benefits trust fund. Also adding an additional $100,000 for our accrued liabilities for compensated absences, and also $50,000 for our new special education stabilization fund for a total of $1.410 million. We ask in Article 12 that $125,000 be transferred to pay down our last debt payment on the Plymouth Street Fire Station improvements that have been paid down over the past several years. This will satisfy the remaining short-term loan for the Plymouth Street Fire Station improvements that have been completed. They did a wonderful job. Then we also ask in Article 13, and that this is the last payment of $100,000, asking to come from free cash to be able to go towards paying off the short-term debt when we rehabilitated the ladder tower 1 repair loan. So that would be the last payment on that, and something that we can cross off our debt books. The last item here is really important. I'm really proud to be able to report to you just today that the Mass School Building Authority has approved the town of Mansfield to be eligible to participate in the boiler replacement program for Mansfield High School. So this request in Article 14 of $75,000 that will be able to deal with the 2 boilers at the high school and the hot water system, to be able to go through and do the necessary design and feasibility to come up with the actual estimate that we'll give to Mass School Building Authority. And then after that is done, the state will actually pay 50% of the eligible costs of the project that will range from somewhere from $1 to $2 million of an estimate. And that's wonderful news that the town just received today at about 10:30 this morning with Superintendent Murphy and I attending the Mass School Building Authority meeting. So we'll be asking for your support to be able to take the $75,000 and let's go through and kick the tires on this, get this designed, and get this project rolling. So at this point in time, before we get into Article 15, I'd like to be able to, Carrie, if you can be able to open up our mics and tell people how they can participate by raising their hand or the unmuting option. I'd love to entertain any questions, comments at this point in time from the general public.
Hi, if you are here virtually, you can use the raise your hand feature, or if you are joining us via the phone lines, please hit *6 to unmute yourselves now. So we'll give people a second. No one has raised their hand as of yet. I
Okay,
think we
Carrie?
can proceed.
Okay, great, Carrie. Thanks so much. So at this point in time, we're going to go over to Article 15. And so I'm going to ask at this point in time, I know that our director for the planning is Sean Burke, and Sean's with us this afternoon. So Sean, if you're able to turn on your camera and come on with us today. Hey there, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. Well, thanks for joining us, Sean, and for the members of the public who are tuning in and those on cable TV can see us live right now. We're going to be talking about the next several articles. So I'm going to turn my camera off. When you're ready to change the screen, just let me know, and I'll go on to the next portion of the article so people can see the changes that are underlined that have been proposed by you and the planning board. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
You got it, Sean. Thanks so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Article 15 is the start of the 5 zoning articles that are on the special town meeting warrant for next Thursday. Article 15 comes about as a change in state law that we need to bring our local zoning bylaw into line with. At the time this article was adopted at town meeting, medical marijuana was regulated by the State Department of Public Health. As such, the State Department of Public Health had their own rules and regulations. As things progressed, the Cannabis Commission was put in place and given the responsibility for overseeing medical marijuana as well. So what we are proposing here with Article 15 is to strike the language that the Department of Public Health required at the time of this bylaw's adoption and substitute the medical marijuana treatment center language that the Cannabis Commission has put into place. So while you look at the various lines being struck out of the existing bylaw and the red highlighted lines on your screen, what you will see is really just what we're changing here is the verbiage. It isn't really a substantive change, substantive enough to go to town meeting, but it's really in order to keep our bylaw in line with the state bylaw. So it's lengthy, but it's really a relatively simple change. So if we could move on to Article 16, that would be great.
Okay, Sean.
Okay, Article 16 was proposes to add 2 wording changes that were not made when this bylaw was amended, and I think it was 2013. So where it says inspector of buildings, we are proposing to substitute planning board. And in paragraph K, we are proposing to substitute planning board's review with site plan approval process. Both of those are in keeping with the bylaw that was adopted in 2013 and simply eliminate conflict between various paragraphs of the existing bylaw. By making the amendments in red, we will eliminate the conflicts and have a uniform bylaw from the beginning to end. So that's really what 16 is all about. Some simple language changes. Article 17 deals with two facets of building height. Now, it should be noted that this amendment does not propose to change the building height limit in any zone. So all of those building height limits, whether it's 35 feet or 45 feet or out in the Cabot Business Park, 60 feet, those would all stay the same. What changes here is that we are introducing a more, I think, clearly understood measure of where we shoot the elevation from, that we take it from the finished grade out front, from the sidewalk, and go to the mean height level between the eaves and the ridge of a gable, hip, or a gambrel roof. So that really eliminates a lot of confusion, I think, in our existing height bylaw definition. The second part of this actually talks about the height above the finished elevation, finished floor elevation, or ceiling elevation, should not exceed 5 feet without a special permit. Now, the planning board heard a lot of discussion about some decorative items that are non-habitable space, and therefore our bylaw pretty much exempted them from regulation. What the planning board is putting before town meeting is saying that you can do those ornamental fixtures, ornamental non-habitable space structures 5 feet above the roof line by right. But if you want to exceed 5 feet, in other words, you want to go 10 feet or 12 feet, you need a special permit from the planning board to do that. So those are the two changes in Article 17. So if we go on to Article 18, we're asking that Article 18 be withdrawn. It'll be worked on over the course of the winter and brought back before town meeting in the spring. But right now we're asking that it be passed over. Article 19 concerns amendments to the site plan section of the zoning bylaw that are far more extensive than just the word changes that we mentioned earlier. In this section, this is a follow-up conversation on an article that went to town meeting, annual town meeting this past spring, and failed to achieve the 2/3 majority needed to pass the zoning article. It received a majority vote, but not a 2/3 vote. So working with the applicant, well, I guess we started at the end of August. We had a series of meetings with the petitioner of the annual town meeting article, and we are bringing some of those proposed changes to the special town meeting. This will actually introduce a new part of the site plan review bylaw that goes to educational uses. It goes to childcare facilities in residential zones. So, and the planning board will be voting this one tonight. The other 4 articles they've already voted. Article 19 will be before the board tonight for a vote. Public hearing is concluded, but they haven't finished discussion of this article. But that's the intent, is to introduce a new section to site plan. And thank you, Mr. Dumas. I'm all done.
Excellent, Sean. Thank you so much. Sometimes I think that when people just see this in the warrant and they see the draft motions, as they see all these red lines, they see all these things crossed out, and it really helps when you have the preparation opportunity, when we do this opportunity for the public, just to be able to go through and have a discussion about it. I think it gives a wonderful opportunity, Sean, in your words, which are really easily understandable, to take some complicated issues and make it not so complicated. So I really appreciate that. Thank you again for the work with you and the planning board. And I wish you the best of luck on that discussion on Article 19 tonight.
Thank you.
All right, Sean, we'll see you. At this point, I'm going to move on to Article 20. And again, as you heard a little bit earlier at the beginning of the presentation, I had spoke about the opportunity to go back to the Massachusetts General Court to be able to allow those 9 extra licenses for those opportunities for full alcohol to be able to be allowed in those respective spaces. Nothing changes that was approved by the legislature in the Act of 2014, but it just changes the figure from number 7, changing it to a sunset clause of 14. And so that's the issue on Article 20. As it relates to Article 21 is the tax increment financing agreement that we are proposing for your consideration, and that we have been working on really closely with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Massachusetts Office of Business Development, and with Walgreens Company, and with our group here in the town. We're really excited about this opportunity. This is the necessary state language to make that a reality in Article 21. And this will be some of the presentation materials that will be going over with representatives from the company. So we'll have Steve McClure with us, who is working on behalf of Walgreens Company, and also one of their senior vice presidents will be with us as well. His name is John, and he will be present with us. We're really excited about that opportunity. His name is John Saylor. He's a vice president for tax operations at Walgreens Boots Alliance, in addition to Steve, who is working on behalf of the company, and he's the former director of commerce for the state of Illinois. So they'll be both present with us on Thursday at the Mansfield High School auditorium, going through this with you and talking about their company and how they chose Mansfield as the #1 location. It was a multi-state site selection process. There's a large company team that's certainly involved. Mansfield initially came out on top, but there's still a lot of things that have to go into it to make the deal a reality. And they also appreciated, and I'm sure you'll hear from them in their own words, about how it was working with the Mansfield team and the professionalism that's exhibited by this team to make these economic development opportunities for the town of Mansfield a true reality. So I referenced a little bit earlier, here's a little bit of a picture of what the building's going to look like at 44 Cabot Boulevard. And again, that's currently under construction. So anybody can drive by, see the walls going up, all the trestles going in, and the roof going up. It's really exciting to see this on a piece of undeveloped land. And I also think it's important to note the fact that our parcels, there's this parcel, and there's only one more that's truly new development that can happen in the park. Is the park would be really fully built out, which is impressive, but also because of the fact that there's a problem statewide of net negative space. And I want to explain what that is, because we have an issue as it relates to opportunities for businesses to grow in the Commonwealth, so they need a place to grow. And what's happening is that all of our commercial industrial properties across the Commonwealth are being gobbled up by new business or by expansion opportunities that are happening left and right. And there are a few commercial industrial properties that are on the table for development. So this 60,000 square foot opportunity and for the whole building at the new 44 Cabot Boulevard is very important, because this is an important site for location for Walgreens Company, but it's also because of the fact that it fits in for the talented workforce that they need for the 200 jobs that this is going to bring to Mansfield, and looking for this long-term commitment to the town, which is really impressive. And again, of the 200 jobs, you can see that 14 are in management, 12 professional, 16 skilled, 158 unskilled, for a total of 200. So that's fantastic of an opportunity. In addition to what the investment is to the town, and I covered this at the beginning, but maybe for those who didn't see that, this is the $30 million investment by Walgreens Company into the town of Mansfield. $6 million into the facility, $24 million in the state-of-the-art robotic equipment. And the important thing is that this is $140,000 in new real estate taxes to the town of Mansfield. And that's not what's being asked for in this TIF agreement. This is the only request is on the personal property tax exemption. And over the life of that is $1,083,000, but it's also an extra $0.083 million to the town of Mansfield that it doesn't have. This will also be of a level of importance because this will be the second largest personal property account in the town of Mansfield, which is important. So it's right up there, up against Covidian and Medtronic, which is the current number 2. This will be 24 million. Right now, it's about 23 million for Covidian and Medtronic, but this is going to be a very important, long-standing personal property accounts for the town of Mansfield. So no business or no resident picks up any burden of this. This is truly a net benefit to the town and a net benefit to Walgreens Company, an investment that they can make into Mansfield, which is really, really positive. So at this point in time, we move on to Article 22, which is a simple drainage easement that we're asking for acceptance, and it's really needed for the Mansfield Department of Public Works Highway Division in order to be able to address some necessary drainage issues. So the drain already exists, there's just not an official easement. So we're requesting that that be adopted and accepted. We're passing over Article 23. As Sean said, for some of his zoning articles, there's going to be some additional work going on for his. This was a home rule petition that we're going to be doing some extra work on and revisiting for annual town meeting. And that will bring us to the end. But at this point in time, Carrie, I do think that there may be another opportunity and some people to be able to ask for some residents' questions, comments at this point in time. So if we could open that up, I think that would be fantastic.
Yes, Miss Sandra Levine has her hand raised.
Okay, great. If we can enable her audio.
So Ms. Levine, you should be able to unmute yourself at this time.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes,
Hey,
we can
Sandy.
hear you.
Good evening. How are you?
I am fine. And how are you?
I am good. Welcome to Virtual Land.
Right. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
One was on Article 5. I think it was motion 1. This was the discussion about turning the 50 West Street location, our former police station, into a new Council on Aging
Yes.
building. Is that correct?
That is correct.
My question is multiple. When did the people of the town say we want to have the Council on Aging there?
So one of the that's a
ever
good
done?
question. So that's a good question, but I'll let you finish your questions on that.
Okay.
Is it a multiple part one, Nancy, or would you like me to take them one at a time?
With the second part is that you have moved a sum of 1,192,000. Is that going to be preliminary money, or is that going to be the cost of the redo of the building?
No, that's really good. So let me take them one at a time for you. So
Okay.
the first part of the question is the request that we have as part of the 1.192. This is a total of all of those items that you currently see on the screen. So if you add all of those up, including the 300,000, it comes to the 1.192. So particularly to your question on 50 West Street, the select board, and this is referenced certainly in the new town's master plan as well, is they want to keep the ball rolling on the discussion of the reuse for 50 West Street. And the select board made a decision, and it really was an important one. We've been continuing to have discussions about 50 West and about its reuse, whether the town first keep the property and retain it, or to sell the property. So the select board made a decision that they wanted to keep and retain the property, number 1. Number 2 was a discussion of to the point of having an opportunity, Sandy, of a grant opportunity for up to $4 million for a rehabilitation of the existing facility into a COA. And that would be significant because the estimated amount for a reno project on that property is about 11 million. And that's in today dollars. And that's what it would cost to do a renovation project at that facility. The cost of a new project is somewhat less expensive than that, but that's an estimate. But the reason why the select board wants to take this and that the CIP committee wants to push this forward for preliminary design is to be able to obtain what would this really cost for a new state-of-the-art facility at that location. And it is less expensive to tear the existing building down that is not up to code, and that does not meet any of the code requirements for Mass State Building Code for us to reuse to redo that building. We would have to bring that completely up to code no matter what it would be. But that the board wants to be able to go through in this position to get our hands around what would this preliminary design give us to look towards an actual construction cost estimate, to then continue the discussion publicly, Sandy, where we would then have the public debate moving forward on how we're going to pay for something like that, and to be able to get official approval for the project. But there's many steps that have to happen before the actual construction with a shovel would happen in the ground.
That certainly does enlighten the situation a lot. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, of course.
On that preliminary design, have you already chosen a company that's going to give us that $300,000 worth of evaluation? And is that company that's going to give us the evaluation in the running for winning the contract?
No, that's a good question, Sandy. So we haven't done any of that work yet. So this is typically, Mike Ahern, our Director of Public Buildings.
Yes.
And so Mike took this as a percentage, because typically how these contracts work, it's a percentage cost of what the actual construction value will be, is how these typically work. And so this was just an estimate that Director Mike Ahern put together for us. So we haven't had any discussions or put this out for an RFP at this point in time. But at some point in the future, assuming that this goes forward and that this gets approved, the town would do a request for proposals for services in the future for this task item.
Okay, if they do an RFP, do they advertise to the people that are going to submit proposals that we have 300,000 sitting in the coffers waiting for someone to consume the whole thing? Or do we not tell them how much we have and then see how the bids come in?
That's a really good point too, Sandy. You must read my mind and Mr. Lacasse's mind very, very well, because that's something that we don't put out there. Because now they'll do their research if they really want to dig, because everything that we do is transparent and open to the public, of course. But that's not something that we tell them in advance.
Okay. The other article that I was concerned about
Sure.
was Article 21. This is the Walgreens article
Yes.
in the industrial park. It has a TIF, and the TIF is going to last for 7 years. What happens to the eased tax money should that company move out before the 7 years are up?
Yeah, so that's actually really good. When you get to see the two company representatives, their first of all, their lease is going to be for longer than 7 years. I believe their initial lease is 11 years on the property at 44 Cabot. So that's number one. So
But that
after this,
doesn't preclude that they could break a lease and still move.
and if for some reason that happens, they have to have certain reporting requirements to the EACC, which is the state organization that oversees TIF agreements. And if they don't stay in compliance, then their TIF goes away.
But what happens to the TIF goes away for future, but what happens to if you have up to 7 years and they decide at year 6 that they're going to move out and they break the lease and they're fined for it, et cetera, What happened to the money for those 6 years previously that were eased in their tax assessment? Anything? Do we collect?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Sandy. I'll look into that and be prepared to better answer that for you by next Thursday.
You mean 2 days, a day from tomorrow?
So I can reach out to the state and ask that particular question.
Is that a question that you're saying Thursday, the next Thursday, that's tomorrow?
Sure,
Or are
I
you
can.
talking a
As I
week
said, I can
from?
reach out to the state tomorrow and have an answer to that question.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you
So,
very
and
much.
Sandy, the nice part of this is that we've been working in conjunction with the Mass Office of Business Development. So Margaret LaForest is our direct liaison with the state. So we've been doing this right in conjunction with them. So I can talk to Margaret and get back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah,
very
sure.
much. That's all
Absolutely.
the questions I have for now.
Very good.
You
Excellent.
know me.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Carrie, do we have anyone else out there?
There's no one else with their hand raised, but if somebody has joined us via the phone, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself now and ask your question. I just went.
Going once, going twice. Well, everybody, listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity for here being live on Mansfield Cable Access. I know this is going to be rebroadcasted between now and town meeting, so thank you for that opportunity. In addition to Nancy and Carrie helping us put this together, and all the work that goes into this with the town departments, and especially Mr. Lacasse, who's been working really hard on not only the original warrant, the updates, but all of the motions as well. It's a Herculean task. So thanks to all the town staff from top to bottom. You really make this happen, and we're really happy to be able to bring this opportunity for the public to you. And again, my last shout out, we ask for your cooperation and for your help to make this town meeting a success for these important budgetary items, for these capital improvements, for the TIF agreement, for the important items that Mr. Burke talked to you about today on the zoning articles, for the amendments. They're all very important business that can't take place unless we have you. So our shout out is to ask you to see us a week from Thursday. It's going to be on November 4th at 7 p.m. at Mansfield High School, and we'll see you there. Thank you so much all. Have a great night. Bye-bye.